Damian, great to host you in Georgia, Tbilisi.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Tell us about the purpose of your current visit. Is it, I'm not sure. It's your first time in Tbilisi or not?
It's my first time.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to say I'm a lover of history.
You do.
And there's a little kid inside me that's always wanted to come to Georgia. So it's a 24-hour visit, but just in a very short period of time, I've loved being here. I love the people, I love the company, I love the fighting spirit, I think is probably a good description.
Thank you so much, yeah, for this, after this such short notice, visiting Forbes in Georgia. Tell me about your story. Before the Stoli group, that was something which was to mention, what I created personally for myself. You are always for and favor of publicity.
That's a great.
That's advantage. In 21st century, that's definitely advantage. It's my appreciations for that. So, tell me more. How do you feel generally in business? What is business today in 21st century?
What is business today? I think that's a great question. Let me just take a step back, if I may. And you asked me a bit about myself.
Please, go ahead.
Number one is I was born and brought up in Africa, in Kenya. I grew up on a farm outside Nairobi, and I grew up with a culture of transparency, a love of the bush, a love of life, a love of the world, I suppose. I suppose I also grew up with a love of adventure, is the honest truth, and the sense of exploration. So not surprisingly, in a way, I decided to join the military. I didn't want to become what I call a conventional yes sir, no sir type soldier. Therefore, I specialised in the Royal Marine Commandos and the commando side. I never went to an officer training college.
Which means studying and learning military?
So it's a mixture of study learning,
okay.
but fundamentally it's going through commando training and then learning all the tactics. But the real point is that I joined as an officer, only 35 of us in our year in the UK, but I trained with the people I would lead. Okay. Now, I think that's really important because it means shoulder to shoulder you're learning, but you have to earn the right to be a leader. And that is everything from doing everything that you expect of them, whether it's physically, mentally, or otherwise, better and faster. But when it comes to, let's say, for instance, a very simple thing, like food and eating. You are taught to eat last. You make sure you look after your people and you make sure they're fed and they're... Now, why is that relevant? Well, first of all, I spent out of 18 years, probably 14 years of that on active service. So actually on the front line or involved in the front line in some way on operations. That gave me a real sense of, I can build great plans, but at the end of the day, it's about the execution of those plans. And fundamentally, it's about visible leadership on the front line when it counts. It doesn't necessarily mean telling people what to do, because again, authority doesn't work. You know, I learned a long time ago, hierarchy is about responsibility. It's not about authority. And it's about doing the right thing, making the right decisions at the right time.
Did I get you correctly that you covered during that period both? During learning, during educating, it was both planning and execution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually it's funny because having been involved in business studies and business university type courses, etc., there's a danger you spend a lot of your time on just case studies. The beauty of the military was actually experiential. So you would actually be taught something, but then have to experience it and learn from doing. I think that's a big way of learning.
How it reflects on the other side of I mean, in the real life, how was that after military? What was the first?
Yeah, then to be honest, I decided I didn't want to be a general. What I really want to do is go into business. I'd probably read too many Richard Branson type entrepreneurial type books. And so I left and then spent 20 years actually before Stoli.
Damian, do you remember that period when you definitely changed your mind? I mean, quitting with military future, becoming general, and going to an entrepreneurship, yeah? I mean, why? Why did you change your mind?
I sat in a bar in Norfolk, Virginia, is the honest truth. I'd had a fantastic career. I was a young 35-year-old lieutenant colonel, in theory with my whole life ahead of me. I sat with a blank piece of paper and I drew 20 years. I just drew a line, 20 years. And I essentially said, I have 20 more years of fun. How much of that is in the military? And I worked out I had 4 more years of fun, and then I would become a general and I would end up in some headquarters. And that goes back to my thought. I thought, there's something about business and being an entrepreneur and the excitement of being on operations, and I loved being on operations. So I resigned the next day. I said, I'm going to go into business.
And
so I did. And I thought I'll spend a year as a consultant, and then I'll get a real job.
And what was that?
And I joined a consultancy at the time. And I'd come in with a very mission-orientated, let's take the world on. And I have to say, after the first 6 months, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I was established consultancy, involved in various projects, and life is full of opportunities. And I met a director, corporate banking, Barclays. And he turned to me and he said, Damien, you look really frustrated. You look very unhappy. And yet I know you're an enthusiast. He said, what's the issue? And I said, you know what? I came into business believing that business was all about big, bold dreams, big, taking the world on, great opportunities, lots of excitement. And I said, do you know what I face? I face risk aversion, face incrementalism, and at no time is there a sense of what we could achieve. And he looked me in the eye and he said, are you saying I'm just as bad? And I said, Michael, yes.
Yes.
And he said, why? I said, well, you've been negotiating a 7% target. You're doing 7.5%. You're all doing high fives. He said, what's wrong with that? I said, at what point do you stop and say, what could we really do? And you know what? Bless him. He said, okay, if you think we can do better, I'll give you 6 months to achieve 18%. We did 32% in 6
32
months.
instead 18.
And instead of his original 7.
His original.
By just thinking differently, building a plan. So your point earlier on, by building a plan where you think much bigger and then you play bigger, we achieved a much better result. And actually, as a result of that, he then turned to me and said, why don't you set up your own company? So I did. I set up a consultancy with a friend, and we built it over 20 years, and I sold it 3.5 years ago as a global business to an American listed company.
We're getting more and more close to the period when your relations with Stlingroup
Yeah. So
is on its way to begin, yeah.
Yeah. So
how was it, sorry?
So the honest truth is that I worked with Diageo on a number of their turnarounds.
Before 2020?
Yeah.
You mean?
So when I first started the company in 1999.
Okay.
In May 1999.
You mean consultants?
The consultancy. It's called McKinney Rogers. 2 weeks later, I had a phone call from the now CEO of Diageo, Ivan Menez, who introduced himself and said, would I like to get involved with them, with a number of their brands? They're creating these global boards. And he asked me to get involved with Johnny Walker. And Johnny Walker, at the time, was a tired, aristocratic old brand in a declining category where, frankly, only boring old men drank whiskey. And that was really my sort of step into the industry itself and getting involved in turnarounds. And I did that. And I spent really over 18 years off and on working with with Diageo, and then working with distributors and others. The importance of that is I was also involved in turning around Smirnoff. So we always looked at Stoli as a competitor. But the interesting thing is, and this is borne true all the way through the years, which was Stoli is an amazing brand, and the day it gets its act together, we should worry. But don't worry, it'll never get its act together.
Never.
Never. That was the right up until a few years ago. That was the view of most people. So about what was it? 2020.
2020, correct.
About March 2020. I was approached and asked to give some advice. But more importantly, and because of my relationship with Diageo, I sort of held off. And then in August 2020, I was asked by Yuri Scheffler, the founder, and through Sabina, his chief of staff, would I have a 1-hour conversation with him? And would I give some thoughts? And to be honest, I thought, well, this is a no-holds-barred conversation. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. I'm going to tell you exactly in terms of taking that point, that actually the real issue here is that you have a sleeping beauty. You've allowed her to go to sleep. She's been in decline for some time, but she's an amazing brand. You have a portfolio of ultra-premium brands that you really, frankly, need real brand building. You have an organization that, frankly, in many respects, needs a different capability. And I was asked earlier on, do I like football? I'm not a great soccer fan, but
he is.
But yes. But my view was, if you want to be the best in the world, you better make sure the players on the field are the best in the world. So it was a no holds barred conversation. Halfway into a 1-hour conversation, he then said, would I be interested in being the global CEO?
Global CEO.
And that was a point where genuinely, and I know it's been quoted, I looked him in the eye and thought, I think I have one more Special Forces mission in me. Because it feels like a big transformation. I've been involved in transformations. But just imagine if we got this right, what we could achieve. So the answer was yes.
On that meeting?
Yes.
Damian, in your various interviews, you mentioned that you did sort of due diligence about Mr. Scheffler before meeting with him. That's part of your previous habits, being military, or is it something else? You were getting prepared for that meeting for some purposes or possible offer, but at the same time you knew with whom you're going to have a meeting. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I mean, I think you asked me, is it part of my previous habit? Yeah, it is.
It is.
It is, absolutely. And two things.
Is it still happening?
No.
No, not yet.
Well, when you say...
No, in general, not about Scheffler anymore.
Oh, do I continue?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, there's two parts. Intelligence is about forward-looking information and understanding of what may happen. And everybody in the company, I'm constantly saying, what's the insight? You know, I don't believe in being a massive army and a big conventional force. If I can understand a point of difference and a point of something that's going to happen in the future, I'm always going to look for intelligence. Whether it's an interview or otherwise, I'm going to look for that. But I'll be really honest with you. Secondly, and in a sense, frankly, it's been tested the last few weeks. I joined up because of service. There was an adventure aspect to this, but I believed in service. I spent 18 years seeing things and being involved in things which, frankly, most people shouldn't see in their lives. And I met some very evil people and was involved in some situations where, frankly, it's the old-fashioned battle between good and evil. And I feel very strongly, therefore, about I want to be on the side of good, and therefore I'd like to be with people who I know are on the side of good.
Tell me your key findings before and after due diligence about Mr. Scheffler, who is the founder of the Stoli Group.
Yeah. The first thing is that this man is a true entrepreneur. You know, I mentioned Richard Branson earlier on.
Yeah, you did.
So he absolutely, those heady days of the 90s, and I could see exactly what was going on. And again, the good and evil. But in Russia, here was a man who emerged as somebody who wanted to be an entrepreneur. He loved the oxygen and the adrenaline associated with being an entrepreneur. And that, when I met him, and the way subsequently we've worked, his ability to envision, you know, Steve Jobs. I always refer to him as the Steve Jobs of Stoli, and I've called him that. He absolutely has this amazing vision and so forth. So that has been borne out very clearly, both in practice. I think the second is this concern. I'll be really honest with you. I was concerned about Putin. I've always been concerned about Putin, but because as far as I'm concerned, I've always seen him on with his KGB past and so forth as of concern. And I was concerned with any sort of association. And I did my own due diligence. I have an ability to do that. But there's nothing like looking somebody in the eye as well and checking them out. And as I talked to him, the way in which he responded to the questions, the tone, and the look in his eye, I was very clear that this was an individual who was on the opposition side, as I've often referred to him as part of the resistance movement.
Before I will move to some further moments and episodes happening that period, in August of 2020, it's the middle of pandemic. I do understand that I am talking with a professional military person with a high reputation already in the business society as well. But at the same time, wasn't that too much risky and tricky to become a global CEO during the highest uncertainty, Damian? What could ever happen in 21st century?
Yeah.
That was 2020, the August. No war, no invasion to Ukraine. I will move to that part. But was the pandemic a part of your thoughts as well?
Yes, but everything ends.
Okay.
And that's why I go back to my real focus was, could I work with this, what I call Sleeping Beauty, this company? Could I work with this individual? Could I work with these teams and truly transform this into the most amazing company in the next few years? The short answer is absolutely. I had no doubt in my mind, because I knew that we've had pandemics, they end. Every crisis ends. I've been in battle and in operations enough to know they all end. The key, though, is to understand the stepping stones to success in the future and what you need to do, which is why on literally day one, I held a global, I think it was day two, I held a global town hall. Apparently the first time in years that everybody had been brought together, the whole company, virtually. Everything was done virtually. I didn't actually meet anybody for at least a year. But I brought everybody together and I did this sort of Kennedy-esque type speech. And part of that was that people at the end of the day need confident leadership and they need to know, I often say to people, just tell me where we're going. Tell me what you want me to do, boundaries within which I've got to operate, and let me go. Well, that's all I did. I simply said, I'm putting a stake in 5 years' time that we will be the most powerful, and I use powerful in terms of cut through in terms of brands and culture and the way we operate, and sustainable, ultra-premium portfolio in the industry by 2025. I just put that stake in. So and then the second piece was, and here are the steps we're going to take to get there. That.
You mentioned that in your op-ed for the CEO today. I mean, the article, what was just a few months ago, at the same time mentioning that the most powerful and sustainable. Are you still in favor of that, taking into consideration pandemic and then war in Ukraine happening? I mean, all these uncertainties and real disasters, what has happened during last 2 years. Are there any changes within your plans, or you still?
So let me
2025, to achieve that goal, we set out to hire the class of 2025, not people just good enough for today, but contributors who would be the stars of tomorrow. There was an uncertainty on the level where nobody could see even tomorrow.
Do you know, it's funny actually, about 2 weeks ago I had my management team and I said, just imagine, we have COVID, we have Ukraine,
You do.
we have supply chain,
Yes.
we have inflation, we have, and I said, the list goes on. And yet, we will still deliver. Imagine that feeling at the end of it. And the reason why I can confidently say that is because I not only believe in the team, but great achievements in life have been achieved knowing there will be adversity on the way.
So they are not on hold. It's acting.
It's acting. It's going to happen, and we're going to end up having one of the best years we've had. Let me just add, on the 24th of February, I know you may not, but on 24th of February was the invasion.
It was.
On the 26th of February, people were pouring Stolichnaya on CNN down the drain. Everybody, Stoli appeared everywhere. My team US team in particular, which is a great team, the distributors, everybody was in shock. And there is no doubt in my mind, they were sitting there thinking, we're a Russian company, this is the perception, hence people pouring it away, with a Russian product led by a Russian oligarch. Therefore, what does that mean for me? It means shame, and it means I've lost my job, potentially, because the company is going to go down because it's our biggest brand and our biggest market. That is what they went through. I have to say, in my mind, there was no shadow of a doubt. Yes, we have to get through this. But what do I know? I knew we were not a Russian company. We were a Latvian company. We had a safe haven opportunity in 2000 because, if I can jump to the third one, we didn't have a Russian oligarch. We had a Russian visionary entrepreneur who actually had decided, because he early, right at the beginning of 2000, saw the evil of Putin, escaped. And as a result of which, we had not lost our Russian recipe, which makes us, I believe, the best vodka in the world. But what we had done is transformed ourselves into a Latvian company, member of the EU, in the NATO country. So I had no doubt. The key, though, was leadership and communication. And that's fundamentally what I've been doing through the last few weeks.
This was the three key factors, what you told me.
Absolutely. And the key then is to communicate, the point you made earlier on, exactly who you were.
Let me quote you once more. I'm going back to 24th of February, which is, and I believe it was also published recently, and then I will fix my next question. I'm quoting you, Damian. I walked across the virtual hall to our founder's office, prepared to have a frank and candid conversation about the importance of speaking against Putin. It turns out this is one battle I didn't need to win, as we were clearly aligned. The next step was to spread word internally. What do you remember from that conversation? Was it brief, or you were already making first steps for the day next, or as you mentioned already about 26th of February, taking steps?
I'll give you the straight answer is 24th of February. I got up at 5:30 in the morning because I live in the across the North American side. I put on my PT gear to go into the gym, as I usually do, and I picked up the news. And I
5:30 local time.
5:30 local time in the morning. And I put on my PT gear. I looked at the press and thought, invasion has happened. So I immediately changed. So this is going to be a very long day. So that's the first thing. The second point then is I spoke to my wife and said, look, this is a moment. We have, for 18 months, I've been saying to everybody that part of that vision is sustainability. Sustainability is about transparency. It's about doing good. It's about standing tall from a leadership perspective. We have essentially relaunched Stoli, and we've talked about liberate your spirit and supporting people. Well, this is it. This is the moment where it goes from a PowerPoint slide to reality. And I said, I'm going to ask the founder where he stands, and I call him the founder because he is my Stephen Jobs. I thought, this is the moment that I've been through these, but if there's any hesitation in his voice over any of the questions, those three in particular, I'll resign. I am not going to compromise on this position.
Is that still a part of your family conversation? Am I right? What you are just delivering now with your wife, or it's your thoughts?
There's no more conversation.
No more conversation.
No, but it's what I feel very deeply inside me. It's what's driven me over all my military career, etc. And therefore, it was an easy conversation because actually he was more extreme on his views about Putin and the invasion than even I was. That he felt this was evil, it was wrong, and I just said, thank you. And then I walked into a global town hall with the rest of my team, and I had the same reaction from them. So, do you know what, as a leader, it went from, this could be a really tough moment to probably the best possible moment, because there's nothing like having everybody shoulder to shoulder with you, from top to bottom to the sides.
we're going to take this one on. And there is no shadow of doubt anybody in this company.
And the first steps were taken already by 26th of February.
Absolutely. No, we then moved very quickly because one was announcing our position,
yes,
and the second was establishing the truth.
Yes.
And if you go back to my point here, which is I always believe the good, listen to the truth, and the truth wins out. So we just needed to communicate it. So that was a key part of all of this. But there's another really important part of that. That's just about the communication. Yeah. But the other part of this is we better make sure people are okay. So we had employees. Who in one particular case, we'd already done a little bit of wargaming. We'd already anticipated this might happen. And as you could see what's called actual intelligence building up to the invasion, we actually pulled out one of our marketing leaders out of the Ukraine with her son and moved it to Cyprus. So we'd already started to take action in this particular case. So one part is employees. The other side was partners. You know, how are our partners affected? And you know, Stas, who actually runs Eastern Europe for us, who's already saying, look, we've got some partners on the ground who are now moving out and they're going to be looking for roles and jobs. So again, what could we do to support them? And inevitably, the third was, and having been involved in a refugee crisis, is there is shock and trauma. So how could we lean in very quickly and start to provide support? And that's where this idea of World Central Kitchen emerged. Because I think Jose Andres, and if I may, I'm quite cynical about dependence. So that if you're not careful, you can go in and do something for a refugee and hand out blankets and food and so forth. But if you're not careful, you create refugee camps and you end up with people there for years and years and years. What I love about World Central Kitchen, Jose's approach, which is he brings the chefs in from around who otherwise would be running their restaurants. He has farmers, and the money also pays, in a sense, pays for them to help to do the job. So you maintain a degree of independence and you're creating the next phase. So for us, it was a very easy thing to get involved in as well.
My next question goes, at the same time, it's a part of my job, reading releases, I mean, press briefings, notes and things like that. While preparation for our conversation, I found the press release which was issued by New York office. It was in a week period after invasion, where Stoli Group announces absolutely major rebrand, announcing Stolichnya named replaced with Stoli. Everybody could expect just to have an ordinary release here. But this is not just release announcing rebrand. Here we can see everything from the attitude to the position of the founder, saying and highlighting position on the Putin regime, and at the same time brief background of the Stoli Group itself. Damian, it is happening just within the week, 10 days period. And it's one of the major players of the global industrial market. What was behind this release?
Completely agree. And look, and I said unequivocal, if you remember, on the 26th of February, I said unequivocally we stand against him. But the reason why I mentioned 26 and why that announcement actually came out a bit later than that is I did not, nor did the founder, want this to appear like some sort of media PR branding gimmick. Not. And that was really important to us, and it remains important to us today, that actually we really believe in helping Ukraine, supporting Ukraine in this difficult time, and standing tall as a leader. And that's our brand. Our rebranding is a point of leadership which says we're going to make it very clear where we stand on all of this. Very, very clear. And that's why we're relaunching the brand.
Stoli Group, established in 2013, was one of the most impressive brands in its portfolio today. What is Stoli Group today?
What is Stoli Group today? Stoli Group is, of course, this beautiful, as I call it, the sleeping, but now very much awake beauty.
It is,
but it also consists of elite. Elite, which I believe is the best vodka in the world. But it's not just what I believe, it has won 10 amazing awards, 10 platinum awards for being the best vodka in the world. We also have Kentucky Owl, which is a bourbon, and we just launched a brand called Wiseman. So here's hot news for you, literally announced today.
Please.
In San Francisco, our major awards. We've won 2 gold awards for Stoli, so we're reinforcing the amazing quality of our premium brand, Stoli the brand.
Wow.
Amazing, and just showing that not only do we do a great job, and I say we, frankly, I pointed our founder on creating these amazing brands, but also we've just won 2 golds for our bourbon as well, for Wiseman there. Elite, we've won 10 global platinum.
Damien, same source from San Francisco?
Same San Francisco. And the rest of our brands have all won awards. Every single one of them have won awards. So literally from our vodka to our to bourbons, to tequilas, to gins, to rums. I mean, we have a whole portfolio.
You do.
And we're very, and I'm really, so in a way you asked me the question earlier on, why do I have no doubt? I have no doubt because I'm starting with the most amazing products, in a way, with the most amazing liquids. And all we've got to do is just make sure the brands really hum and imagine where we could really be in the future.
And team members.
Team members.
Across whole world. It's 176 markets and with more than 200 distributors worldwide, including Georgia, where you are so much welcome. Thank you again for visiting us. But I know you are covering huge markets. At the same time, you are presented in Georgia as well. What is Georgia as a country for Stoli Group? How are we positioned? Because it's still a small country, it's a very small internal market. At the same time, in my understanding, very much valuable geopolitical location, which makes some premises for the future to become a hub. And it's not a dream. It's let's wait for a while. But tell me, what is Georgia for Stoli Group and its CEO?
Yeah, that's very simple. It's in a sense it's similar to the way the whole company feels. You know, we have a purpose which says, dream big, play bigger, and you achieve the unachievable. And you can see the thread through quite a lot of conversation. And therefore, big doesn't necessarily mean right or the best or otherwise. So you could argue, why Georgia? Well, I'll tell you why Georgia. Number one is it's a very important market for us because the consumers actually understand, and I was asked the question, so why is it that we have done so well? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the consumers understand what the best vodka tastes like, and they're discerning. Secondly, it's a market where we have an amazing distributor, and that powerful word for me was a big part of that. Is not only do we have brands that cut through with the consumer, do we have a great culture, but really importantly, do we have the most amazing distributor partners who share a dream and who share the ability to bring something amazing to the table? And we have that here as well. So you imagine the combination of a great brand.
Oh no,
I have a great distributor, but I also have a team in Stars and my own team here. You imagine putting those three together. That's a hell of a cocktail, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, indeed. So, is there anything, still, you know, from 2013, there are a lot of things that are happening around. At the same time, we have this story with new brand and things like that. I got you. You're fine with the local partners. We appreciate they are part of Georgian business society, very much respected. That's what I can definitely confirm.
Right.
And at the same time, you personally, as a CEO, global CEO of a very important brand portfolio worldwide, how is in general brand and all the products doing here. Are there any global consequences or problematic things happening with the local business climate or business operational wise?
Yeah. Look, it's a great question, and this is about visible leadership. It's about being here. It's about recognizing what's important. I'm here because, I'll be really honest with you, I'm frustrated. But I'm here because it's important, and I'm here, and if I may have a couple of minutes, I'm here because I don't understand. If I go back to what I said earlier on, I don't understand how a brand like Stoli, which in 1997 was the trademark was bought legitimately on the open market using Price Waterhouse. In 2000, we had to seek a safe haven in Latvia because it was very clear that Putin did not like this idea of the success, frankly, that Stoli or Stolichnaya was actually achieving. And he wanted an alternative approach to it. So FKP was born out of that. Now, what I don't understand, therefore, is how here we are standing in Georgia, how a legitimately acquired brand with a legitimate trademark can somehow be told not to trade for some legal reason. So right now, we are being held back. Number two, I don't understand why a brand that, frankly, the consumers really want, because it is the best quality, and yes, has a one, you know, I call it my grandfather's recipe, special recipe in it. They want to drink the best. And thirdly, has shown that it stands for what it really believes in actually creating a better world, and particularly given the history of Georgia as well. I don't understand why we're being held in abeyance. And I've come here to both see it for my own eyes, spend time with the team to reassure them, and frankly, thank you for the opportunity, in a sense, to make my case, to say, please put us back on the shelves.
Yeah, global brands are at the table talking about. So, did I get you correctly? Litigation and dispute still goes on.
It's still going on here in Georgia right now. You know, right now we are in an appeal situation. My understanding is we've won the appeal at the higher court, but at the lower court we are still being held off the shelves. We're not allowed to distribute.
Damien, while mentioning FKP, it means still Russian authorities.
Yes.
Definitely,
yes.
for
it's a Russian agency.
It's a Russian agency, 100% owned by the government.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here we are as a legitimate entrepreneurial business, wanting to go about our legitimate right, being held back by a government-sponsored agency. I don't understand it.
I shouldn't be mentioning you as a former Royal Marine.
Well, yeah, of course I'm a Royal Marine Commander at heart. But that's aside. I mean, this particular case, I just...
This is a case happening especially in Georgia.
In Georgia right now. Now, it's, of course, we have...
Or is it a global problem?
No, you're exactly right. We have spent over 20 years, so ever since the 2000 moment, when, frankly, my reading of all of this, it's from Putin, it's either you're in or you're out. And in the case of Yuri Shefler, he said, I'm out. I am not going to participate in what in effect is a corrupt situation. And so he saw this very early on.
He did.
And since then, we have been out. And I refer to us as the resistance, in a sense. We've been fighting as resistance against this, probably below the radar, because nobody really was paying that much attention over the years, because it's very easy for people just to ignore this. So we've been fighting this. And so when the invasion occurred on the 24th of February, for me it was very clear. We are the resistance. We've been fighting. We're going to come out now and be really open and let you know who we are. And in a sense, this is clearly touching the whole trademark challenges we've had. And we've had them around the world. And again, from a logic point of view, we've often stood back and said, but why is this being allowed to happen? Well, there's politics.
It is.
And I'm not a politician, never will be.
Yeah, but at the same time, like a conclusion for this part of our conversation, it means that Stoli Group is disputing within the court system Georgia worldwide with the Russian government. Am I right?
That is correct.
And that's legally correct.
That is legally correct. Well, that's through FKP, but legally correct.
Okay. So, while congratulating you with San Francisco results for today, my appreciations once more, tell me about your plans. Plans of a CEO who is already adapted, not as a former Royal Marine Commander. No, you're adapted to pandemic, God bless. Really, World War happening in the middle of Europe, let's call everything indeed what it is, to the situation when you represent the global network. Tell me about your plans. I do know what you plan for 2025. And you confirm that it's still on track and you act on that. Could you be more specific about your plans?
Number one is we will deliver the 25 vision. There is no doubt in my mind, if not. Actually, my CFO now often says to me, I think we could double it. So I feel very confident about that. I think the second is we put it in the context of building a much bigger organization. But here's the I suppose the real game, the real outcome, which is, and I think this period of Ukraine, I hope, has allowed everybody, made everybody reflect on life and the planet. I believe there's always been a tension between business and doing what's right. There's always been that tension. And you've plenty of cases where obviously things go wrong. And it's been really interesting, which is, so what do I mean by that? I mean, business is about making money, fundamentally, making profit. It's the oxygen of growth, it's good. And therefore, if there is any compromise, in other words, there is a downside, then frankly, all your corporate social responsibility, all your diversity, all your great plans of sustainability go out the window, because it's a tough time. My aim, our aim in Stoli, is to accept the tension that rightly exists. And I really believe this. I really believe, and therefore coming out of this crisis, I believe the consumer and others will essentially turn around and will judge us.
Judge you.
Judge me, judge us. And the great thing about the internet, there are fingerprints everywhere. Right? They will judge us. Did this company behave in the right way in a moment of crisis when it could so easily have said, oh, this is too difficult, I'm going to step back? I would like them to judge us and say, no, they stood up, they stood forward, and they said, we will not hesitate to do the right thing. And by the way, we will end up still as one of the most successful businesses.
Damian, how do you communicate with your Ukrainian team? Directly, where are they? How they are doing?
So clearly, I WhatsApp at 2 in the morning to individuals actually in Kiev and others. Obviously we have town halls, but I also try and bring groups the team together and actually say, tell me how you're feeling, what's happening. And I think the final is always being available, and I am always available.
I'm quoting another question coming from Financial Times, which is going to be definitely a very good part for conclusion of my interview with you. If you were not CEO or a leader, what would you be? And you're responding, I would be a farmer. I love the joy of planting seeds, trees, etc. Go. Don't you say that it's totally opposite of your character, of your past, and of your current plans, what you are doing, like dreaming to become a farmer, Damien McKinney?
I don't think it is. I think if you think about everything I'm doing two things. Number one is, I just believe in this beautiful world. When I go out there and I walk in the fields, I love seeing the sunshine. But the second thing is, in order to really appreciate the environment, you have to plant seeds. You have to nurture them. You have to grow them. You have to be there for them. And you have to do your bit, particularly in those critical early years, to ensure that we have this beautiful world in the future. And I haven't changed my mind.
Damien McKinney, sir, thank you so much for being with us. That was very interesting.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it.